Hey, what's up guys, it's your boy Firefox and welcome back to the channel. Now with the new set being released, Secluded Springs, I'm recording this at like 4 a.m. in the morning. We want to just go through some of the cards that I believe will be meta cards, and cards that have like cool gimmicks and such that I think will be very useful. Cards that also remind me of some of the meta things that we would have had in the IRL TCG, as well as a player of the IRL TCG myself. Alright, so if you like this video, let me know in the comments down below, as well as you can do that very easily by dropping a like and also using the new hype feature. Yes, there's a new hype feature on YouTube where you can kind of scroll across where it says like and dislike and those kind of things, and you'll see the word hype and you can hype the video for free. So let's get straight into it. We're not going to do every single card because some of them are like evolutionary lines, etc., but we are going to do the very high meta cards that I think is going to do well, and hopefully I can leave some chapters down below so you can kind of skip through to whichever ones you want to see. Alright, so first off we have Jumpluff EX. Now Jumpluff EX starts off at 160 HP. Of course this can go up with things like Leaf Cape, which gives it essentially 190 HP, so it's not getting one shot by many things. Even if it gets hit by Charizard, Stokesard that is, it doesn't get hit for 190. Alright, so it's still alive even with weakness, and the weakness for this card is not even fire Pokemon, so you should be fine. Now it attacks for 1 energy, which is similar to what Crobat would have done in the previous set to this one, but it hits for 70 damage and then runs to the bench. Now it says you may switch your Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. We have a card similar to this. Its name is Tapu Koko and it's electric. It does the same 70 damage and then switches to an electric Pokemon, whereas this Pokemon is able to switch to any Pokemon on the bench, and it says you may switch, so you have the choice to switch or not. Alright, keep that in mind. That's important to note, that you have the choice to switch or not. At 70 damage you're not going to one-shot many things, maybe a lot of baby Pokemon. However, with the ability to switch out as well as a retreat cost of 1, you're not locked into the active with Jumpluff EX, so it's a really good card. You can play it in any deck because it is 1 colorless energy, so I'm really excited to see what kind of decks people play around Jumpluff EX. There is a non-EX Jumpluff as well that gives you free retreat for any Pokemon that's in the active, so I don't know, maybe running the both of them in a deck might be viable. And I can't remember offhand how much damage that Jumpluff does, but I mean, pairing it with this one, I guess you can run 2 copies of that, or 1 copy of that and then 2 copies of this in case you come up against something like Oricorio, which is still going to be strong in the current meta. Alright, moving on, we have Celebi next, which I think is one of the cards that I personally said was coming to the game. I didn't say specifically Celebi, but I did say that we would be getting devolutions. Now devolution is a concept that we have in IRL TCG that they've now brought over to Pokemon Pocket, and it's really cool because devolution opens you up to a plethora of plays. You can kind of wait for your opponent to play out their candies and then devo them and kind of stall them that way, because many of them don't have the middle evolutions. You can kind of also take KOs, because the good thing about Celebi is that it also does 40 damage. Now it does the damage before it does the effect, so if you are hitting something like an EX Pokemon, red will still work, give you that 60 damage, and let's be honest, many of those evolution Pokemon have a 60 basic Pokemon at the bottom of their evolution, so you're most likely going to be KOing it, because once it devolves into the evolution and it doesn't have any health left, it dies. Alright, so you get that 1 prize. It's important to note that you do not get 2 prizes because you did not kill the EX Pokemon. Alright, you would have killed the basic, unless the basic was something like EX. You're only going to get 1 prize unless it's an EX. Alright, so keep that in mind. It does 40 damage. It does take the effects of anything that would boost its damage before the devolution, and then it evolves it, and the damage that is done either reflects on a kill or just reflects on the basic Pokemon. So keep that in mind. Celebi is going to be broken in some decks if you play it properly, and I'm excited to see what it will do. Alright, I just wanted to mention Durant as well, because this is the beginning of the mill decks that we're going to be seeing, probably more prevalent when the Mega Gyarados comes out, because we know Mega Gyarados discards cards off the top of your deck. Durant is doing something similar to that, and it discards 1 card off the top of your deck. Now, probably not going to be very meta right now, It is a basic Pokemon. It does have 70 HP, so it survives some 60 attacks. It only does 40 damage, and it does require 2 energy, but that effect of discarding the top card is always something that people dislike, because you don't get to play that card at all unless you have something like Granny to get it back into your hand, or Fisherman, and let's be honest, people are not really playing those decks. So I mean, it just was a noteworthy mention, I guess, for me to mention Durant, right? And that kind of moves us out of the grass Pokemon. Of course, we have the Entei EX. I won't go into it too much because we've had this Pokemon been shown to us a long time now. It does have the ability to draw a card at the end of the turn that it is in the active, and then it does 60 plus 60 more when you have 2 extra fire energies on it. Now, if you're playing something like Magby and you're going first, you're going to get those 2 energies on your first turn attacking. Then you're probably going to have 4 energies the next time you attack, if you are running, I don't know, some sort of energy amp or energy ramp, okay? Otherwise, on your turn 3 attacking is when you're going to be doing 120 damage. I guess people will be playing this in their deck as a starter and a closer as well. You could also use it as just a closer by charging it up on the bench, but it's interesting to see what kind of decks we will get out of it. I mean, a lot of persons would have theorized it. I think Gosly and Pokemads, I believe, would have had some good decks theorizing or deck theories for this Pokemon. So I mean, this will definitely be in the meta. The Magcargos won't be in the meta. Another notable mention is Talonflame. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned. This is one of the cheapest ways to burn your enemy opponent, I believe, besides something like Salazzle. It does also have 130 HP, so it does survive a couple lashes, at least 2. Alright, but it hits for 50 for 1 energy, and it burns your enemy's active Pokemon. So I thought that was noteworthy as well, and it also has a basic evolution that is colorless. Alright, now we have one of the Pokemon lines that is going to see a little more play because of Politoed that was released in the previous set. We have Poliwag and Poliwrath, which turns into, well, we'll get to the evolution, Poliwrath. Alright, and for those who know what Politoed does, if you have an evolution Pokemon that evolves from Poliwhirl, it does 40 more damage, or is it 60? One or the other. Alright, and the Poliwrath that I'm talking about, I can probably just show you guys it very quickly. Alright, Poliwrath EX. If this Pokemon has water energy attached, this attack does 40 more damage. Alright, it has to have any amount of water energy, because there is 2 colorless it requires to attack as well. So you can kind of start off with something like Mantyke and charge up with water. You just need 1 at least, and then you can have I guess fighting energies as your main type of energy for the deck. And you go into this and you can hit for 100. If you have Politoed on your bench, you can have up to 2 Politoads on your bench, or 1 I would assume, because you can't have many of the base evolutions, too many of the base evolutions. I think you only have about 2. Politoed paired with Poliwrath kind of gives you 140 damage plus extra 40, that's 180 damage, right? So it's kind of cool. I do think it would be I don't think it would be meta, but it would be played. I do think we will see a lot of cheese decks playing it. I know there's a couple persons in the community that have already had builds with Poliwrath, the non-EX version. So I mean, they're probably excited right now that they have Poliwrath EX to kind of rebuild those decks and make it even better. Of course, I think that this card is a really cool card as well. Slowking, discard up to 2 Pokemon tools from your hand and attacks. This attack does 50 damage for each card, so that's 100 damage with Slowking if you can find your 2 Pokemon tools. Now, it's not going to be that hard because they did actually give us a card that searches Pokemon tools and puts them into your hand. It searches, I think, the top 4 cards of your deck and then puts any Pokemon tool it finds there into your hand. When we get to that card, I'll show you what it is. It's not going to be meta per se, but for 1 energy to do 100 damage on Slowking is really cool. We are going to see some decks that are going to run it as I guess an extra tech card. But it's really cool. It has 130 HP, so it survives some of those 100 attacks. Alright, moving on, we have Suicune EX, which I believe is probably one of the best out of these 3 legendary dogs, which are cats, which we call dogs, but they're actually cats. It has the same ability. It draws a card at the end of the turn, kind of doing essentially what the EVs do. or the Sylveons do, but every turn. So I guess I guess it's better than the Sylveon because it's something that you can activate every turn. It also, however, does 20 damage for each benched Pokemon. Now, a lot of persons were saying that you can get counterplayed by your opponent not playing any Pokemon on their bench, or you yourself bricking with Pokemon on your bench. However, I believe that there are enough cards like Pokemon Flute, etc., that put Pokemon from your opponent's discard pile onto their bench that would kind of see more play and encourage people to play Suicune EX some more. There's also the possibility that persons don't want to get dunked on, so they put Pokemon down on their bench. They don't want to get red carded, they don't want to get masked, so they put the Pokemon down on their bench. So I really think that you're going to be hitting for 100 120 very consistently with this Suicune, and at 140 HP it kind of rivals the Espion Sylveon decks. So I personally think that we will see a lot of play of it in some water decks, especially with the inclusion of Mantyke. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, if you think that one of the other two legendary dogs will be better or see more play than Suicune. Alright, of course we have the Mantyke. I didn't skip it. I didn't skip the card that was right before this. I wanted to show you the Mantyke because it pairs well with Suicune and many other water decks that we're going to see. Self-explanatory, it gives you an energy from your energy pile onto a bench Pokemon, just like Pichu, just like Magby, but in this case it's a water energy. So it's definitely going to be top core tier meta in many of the water decks that we're going to be seeing, right? Then we have Milotic, which when you evolve a Feebas into Milotic, it heals one of your water Pokemon for 6-day energy, right? Please remember, it only heals water Pokemon, alright, because I did see some people saying that it would heal any Pokemon on your bench, not really recognizing that it said water Pokemon. So it only heals water Pokemon for 6-day HP, or 6-day damage, and then it also only heals when you evolve, okay? So this is not something that occurs every turn. This occurs once per turn, not once per turn, but once, and that's it. When you evolve into it, that's it, right? There's no evolution again. I guess if you are Celebi, I guess you can evolve again back into Milotic and get that HP back, I guess, and heal everything that the Celebi, all the damage the Celebi would have done to you away, because it only hits for 40 anyway. So that's a cool thing to kind of think about, and I hope somebody gets it on recording so that I can post it the first time it happens, so that we can all see it in the community. But yeah, it only happens when it only heals when you evolve, and it says once during your turn when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may heal 6-day damage. Now this doesn't mean that you can't do 2 evolutions and get 120 damage healed off, right? So you can heal 6-day with your first evolution and then 6-day with your second evolution. They both will work. I'm not sure why they put once during your turn, but they both will work. Alright, moving on. We have the third legendary dog, Raikou EX. Now initially I thought that this was the weakest out of the 3, but it does have heals, it does have Pichu, and it does do damage to the bench, essentially removing the need for Sabrinas, and you can run 2 Cyruses and choose what you want to kill. Now this is at 6-day. This is at 6-day damage being done only because it is so fast. This Pokemon can get online in its first turn of attacking, or your first attacking turn, like right away. So if you start with Pichu and Raikou, you charge with Pichu if you're going first, and then when it comes back around to you, your opponent most likely hasn't been able to evolve because they went second, and you can't evolve in your first turn going second. So you just kill it with Raikou. There's many basic Pokemon that have 60 HP that Raikou is going to dunk on. Let's hope that you did put something down on your bench, because Raikou is going to see a lot of play in those very fast electric decks. I guess it lends to the theme behind electric decks being some of the faster decks. Now it does have 2 energy to retreat, so I don't know if you will get blocked or bricked into the active. If that's like, if you go first you get no energy, then you go second, you still can't do anything, and then you have to wait till your third turn to kind of attack. There is that possibility, but then we have things like Leaf, etc., that can kind of get you out of those situations. So please, when you're building this deck, run something that could help you retreat. Alright, so yeah, it does have 130 HP as well, which is the least HP amongst the 3 dogs. Alright, out of the electric Pokemon, there was nothing too spicy, but Boltund I really did want to mention because it has the ability to attack for 1 energy. So doing 70 damage for 1 energy is really good because of course we have things like Oricorio, so this shuts down Oricorio. It also survives 2 hits from Oricorio, so it will take 3 turns for Oricorio to kill you if Oricorio has something like a scarf on it, or I don't know, if there's any other situation that you need to survive, maybe a Zoroark, etc. Alright, if this Pokemon has damage on it, the attack can be used for 1 energy. Now, to get the attack off on, to get damage on Boltund initially, you're going to have to run something that damages your bench, unless your opponent would have hit it before and then you had it in the active and you can attack for 1 energy. Alright, now the retreat cost is still 2, it doesn't go down with the ability, so just keep that in mind. This is, I guess, an honorable mention for the electric types. Alright, and now going over to the psychic types, we did get a couple. I think we got the most abilities and like cool move effects from this this typing. First we have the Misdreavus. Now this Misdreavus is probably not gonna see a lot of play, but it does have a really cool ability in that when you play it from your hand to the bench, it shows you your opponent's hand. Now why is this good? This is good because you can decide if you want to use red after playing this. You can decide if you want to use Mars after playing this. You can just get some hand knowledge, and hand knowledge is always important when playing this because you get to know how to move next. Alright, and hand knowledge is one of the most OP mechanics that you can have in a card game because you basically know, you get to plan how you play your next moves because you know exactly what your opponent has, right? And the evolution to this isn't far from good as well. It says at the end of your opponent's next turn, do 90 damage to the defending Pokemon. Now this means that it only works on the Pokemon that is in the active, or that was in the active when you used this move. Keep in mind, if your opponent retreats, that this move doesn't go through. Alright, the new Pokemon that comes into the active doesn't get hit for 90 damage. Alright, so keep that in mind. This is a move that is going to force your opponent to retreat or force them to take 90 damage, which kind of puts them in a position, puts many Pokemon in a kind of position to be one-shot by something else on your bench. And it's really good that it only attacks for 1 energy as well as retreats for 1 energy. So the turn that you used it, if the opponent stays in the active to keep the damage, to take the damage, it takes 90, and if it's still alive, it's probably going to get one-shotted by something on your bench. And if they do retreat, you can also retreat into something more effective against the next Pokemon. Alright, so yeah, I think that was kind of cool. Cursola, not going to see much play with Cursola. The ability says basically that if your opponent knocks you out, you get to knock them out as well, based on a flip coin. Alright, you have to hit heads. This does not work with Will, so that is the only reason why I wouldn't play something like this, because it doesn't work with Will. I mean, it will come in clutch to flip heads if this is your last Pokemon and they need 1 prize and you need 1 prize to kind of tie off the game, but it doesn't work with Will. So, I mean, it's a possibility, but it's not a guarantee. It's just a cool closer, cool ability, and maybe, who knows, eventually we'll have something that makes it worthwhile playing. Alright, moving on, we have the Latias and Latios twins. I mean, nothing too spicy. The Latias does 20 more damage if you have Latios on the bench, and the Latios does 120 damage, but it discards all energy. Not sure when you would use these two guys together, probably just as closers, maybe for a certain decks. Let me know in the comments down below what decks you have theorized with it. It does have free retreat, however, if Latias is on the bench, and I guess, well, they're both in each other's arts, which is kind of cool. Moving on to the fighting times, well, we would have done the Poliwrath EX again. I'll just remind you, if this Pokemon has a water energy on it, any at all, any amount, it does 40 more damage for 140 essentially, with 180 HP. Alright, this Dugtrio is a notable mention. Discard the top card of your deck. If the card is a fighting Pokemon, this attack does 60 more damage, essentially giving you a 101 energy attacker that has 90 HP. Nothing too great, it is an evolution, and we did have in the last meta Silvally, which was 110 HP that did 100 damage, so it's kind of cool to have something similar to that. There is another deck or another card that replaces Silvally, so there's going to be a new Silvally deck, and I'll show you exactly what it is in a moment, but let's just finish off with the fighting types. Alright, so we have a new Phanpy, and it was suggested to me or made known to me that this Phanpy is going to be very broken, and I'll explain to you why, and I'll show you all the cards that is going to make it broken. Alright, so we have this Phanpy. This attack does damage to your opponent's active Pokemon equal to the damage this Pokemon has on it. Why is that broken? I only have 70 HP. The most damage I can do is 60. Well, think again, because if you evolve into this Donphan, or you evolve into a Donphan EX. Wait a minute, let me cook. Donphan EX has 160 HP, if I'm not mistaken. If it's 140, that's fine as well. If that Pokemon is damaged, it can also do the damage back to your opponent. Alright, and then let me show you why. Because we've been given the amazing item, and I'll have to scroll all the way down to show you, called Memory Light. The card that this card is attached to, the Pokemon that this card is attached to, can use any attack from its previous evolutions. 160. I'm gonna go down to minimum 150. That means I can do 150 damage in return. This Memory Light card is we're gonna see this if you see this Memory Light card in a deck, you're probably gonna lose, because that person has put some thought into what their Pokemon is going to be doing to your Pokemon. Yeah, so if you have Memory Light on that Donphan EX with this Manaphy as the basic evolution, you basically can do up to 150 damage if you have 10 health left, or even if you have Cape on, probably 170 damage, which is kind of crazy. So guys, don't sleep on this Phanpy. I already pulled like 2 full arts and 4 copies of this version. We also have this Donphan that you can also use the same ability with. It does take 20 less damage from attacks, so it kind of is a tanky guy, and with the same tool you can kind of do the same damage calculations that I was mentioning before. Alright, another good Pokemon from the set that has one specific drawback, in that it needs 4 energies to attack, is Crustle. Alright, flip a coin. If heads, this attack does 50 more damage. I mean, already doing 100 damage is crazy. Doing a 50 extra with a flip coin is really nice. It's just sad to know that it needs 4 energies. Maybe they will give us a baby Pokemon that charges up fighting Pokemon eventually. Alright, moving on to the Zoroark and Zoroarks. Now, I would have spoken about Zoroark and Zoroark before, so I'll just speak about Zoroark very quickly. I do think it will be in meta, because when this specific card knocks out a Pokemon, and it does 70 damage, so it's not nothing to scoff about. It doesn't take any damage from effects of attacks or attacks in the following turn from your opponent, so it basically puts up a wall. Now, it has 100 HP, so it's not going to survive many turns. However, any turn that it does kill something, the turn after it's going to survive, guaranteed. Alright, so that, I thought that was kind of cool. I did speak about it before. You can check out that video probably in the cards or pinned somewhere in the description somewhere. Alright, there's nothing else really in the dark type Pokemon. I mean, besides this attack does 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon for 1 energy. Kind of cool, but it is an evolution, so it will be kind of hard to make it consistent in a deck. Alright, now this is the card that I was speaking about that is going to take over the role of Silvally. Now, the only downside with it is that you can't search for it with Gladion. Alright, however, if this Pokemon has 2 or more different types of energy attached, this attack does 60 more damage. So it's 100 damage for 2 energy, just like Silvally, but it has 10 more HP, so it can't be killed with a Giovanni from Silvally if you're facing against a Silvally. So I thought that was kind of cool. So it does the same 100 damage once you have 2 different energies on it, 120 HP. The only difference is you cannot search for it with Gladion, so maybe there will be other ways that you can kind of make it more consistent. But this deck, I think a lot of people are going to make decks with this specific card because it hits for 100. and it's cool, and it's 120, and it's Altaria. So we getting a mega evolution of this as well. So who knows? We'll see how that goes. That's a really cool card. The only dragon card that we've gotten, by the way, which is kind of crazy. Out of the entire set, that was the only dragon card. All right, moving on to the colorless energies. I mean, nothing too spicy. We did get a Igglybuff, another attacking baby Pokemon. We do have other attacking Pokemon that are babies, like Smoochum, but you have to have energy on your opponent's side, like Elekid, but it hits the bench. What else we have? We have Tyrogue, hits for 20 as well. This one hits for 10, but it also puts your opponent to sleep, which is kind of cool. So it is the first baby Pokemon that I think that inflicts a status effect on your opponent, which is kind of cool. So I think that was worth mentioning. All the baby Pokemon are worth mentioning in my opinion. Then we have Milktank. So until this Pokemon leaves the active spot, this Pokemon's Rolling Frenzy attack does plus 30 damage. Yes, so every time that this Pokemon attacks, it does 30 more damage. Now, a couple things to note: that you have to attack for it to keep stacking. If you miss an attack, it doesn't stack. Also, if it switches to the bench, it stops stacking. And this also includes if it switches to another Milktank. So if you have a Milktank in the active and a Milktank on the bench, and you're Sabrina for some reason, and you switch into the second Milktank, the second Milktank is going to start over from 10. Alright, so keep that in mind. I had to learn it the hard way. Just keep that in mind, okay? So you really don't want to get Sabrina at all. We have another baby Pokemon, Azurill. Heals 50 damage from one of your bench Pokemon. I don't think this one is going to be played very heavily because it is a liability on your bench, because you're only going to play it to heal. Now, if you open with it in your first, you can be in problems if you have no other Pokemon. And when you do play to heal, it does mean that your opponent would have hit you for at least 50 damage the previous turn, and putting Azurill in the front to heal for 50 damage, when it only has 30 health, even with a cape, it dies to something that does 50 damage again. You probably won't be playing Azurill. I think it was just a cute card that they wanted to release, because they had it in the mats and sleeves and coins for the new premium set. So I don't know, Azurill may not get any play, it may not be meta, but I had to mention it because it was a baby Pokemon. Alright, I do think that Zangoose will see some play in any decks that would have run Druddigon. Zangoose is better and worse. It's worse in terms of it has less HP by 10 HP, but it's better in terms of you can attack with it if you need to, because it needs only 2 colorless energy, which means it can be played in any deck. And then it has the ability similar to Druddigon, where it does 20 damage to the Pokemon that did damage to it. Alright, so with something like a Rocky Helmet on it, it can do 40 damage in return. With something like a Poison Barb, it can do 30 damage in return if you don't have any Nihilegos on the bench, etc. Alright, so I guess it's a better Druddigon, so it may come up in the meta at some point. We have the tools. The retreat cost of one of a water Pokemon card is 1 less, and this is not an item, this is a tool, so it attaches to a Pokemon and its retreat cost becomes 1 less. So it's not a one use thing. It remains, and the Pokemon has 1 less retreat cost whenever. It can be removed with something like Guzma, so I guess play it at your discretion. It would work in many water decks. And then we spoke about Memory Light already, so I'll just flash over that as well. Going into some of the trainers, we have Whitney, which works with the Milktank that we just spoke about. Now, I did do a video today on Milktank, and I guess playing Milktank in, well, not ranked, because ranked is not out yet at the time of recording this video, but Milktank basically want to sustain its life as much as possible. So put a cape on it, run a bunch of Whitneys and Joys and Potions and all those things to keep it alive. Probably Irida if you have water energies in the deck. But what Whitney does is she heals Milktank specifically and recovers him from sleep paralysis and confusion. Now, we don't know if we're gonna see another Milktank come in the promo set later on in September, because that would make Whitney see a lot more play. Right now, I don't think Milktank is in a position where Whitney is necessary in the deck to keep it alive. I mean, if you want to run a Milktank only deck, then probably, but we may see something like how we had Blissey come with an EX version of himself in a like a promo event in the future. So hopefully we see more play of Whitney. The Whitney full art is a really nice card as well. I'll probably show that on screen eventually, like in a bit, right? Then we have Traveling Merchant. Now Traveling Merchant is the card that I spoke about earlier when I spoke about Slowpoke. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck, put all Pokemon tool cards you find there into your hand, and shuffle the other cards back into your deck. Now this is good in not just a Slowking deck to find those tools to do your 100 to do your 100 damage. It is also useful in other decks that use tools or that rely on tools, maybe like your Skarmories, where you need tools to hit early with your Skarmory or to do more damage with your Skarmory. There's other decks that you can make proper use of these tools as well, where you would need your Barbs, or you're probably looking for that extra energy with your Leaf Capes, etc. So it kind of could fit into any deck where you rely heavily on your tools. So yeah, Traveling Merchant is really cool, and the full art for it is also nice. As well. Morty. When I saw Morty, I thought about the Sylveon Espeons right off the bat, like immediately, because if this is put into a Sylveon Espeon deck, it kind of makes it more broken, because now you're not just drawing all your cards, you're controlling what your opponent draws. So for each of your psychic Pokemon in play, look at that many cards from the top of your opponent's deck and put them back in any order. So you can look at the top 4 cards of your opponent's deck, essentially, if you have a full board of psychic Pokemon, and put the Pokemon or cards back in any order that you feel like. So you can kind of break your opponent. If you see 4 cards, basically you kind of control what your opponent is playing. So this is kind of cracked, kind of broken. I could see it being paired with the Mismagius line as well. So Mismagius to see what they have in their hand, or Misdreavus, sorry, and then also Morty to see what they have in their deck and kind of order what they have in their deck. And after they've drawn the top 4 cards or top 3 cards, depending on how much you would have ordered, you can use another Morty to order it again. It's crazy. There are a lot of things that you can do with this Morty. I like to see some of these troll kind of cards in decks, because it kind of makes the game a little more fun to play, right? So these are some of the full arts. I'm not going to go through the full arts, they are just the full arts. The only thing I'm going to show you is the Whitney, which is my favorite out of the new set. And then we have the Traveling Merchant, which is not one of my favorites, but it's a pretty cool card as well. Then we also got some shinies of older cards. Alright, let me know in the comments down below, what did you think about this new set? What did you pull, and what kind of decks are you excited to build? I know what I'm excited to build. I'm excited to build some Jumpluff, I'm excited to build some Suicune, I'm excited to build some Celebi, some other troll ones. Alright, it's your boy Phanpy. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what's your favorite card from the set again in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoy, and we are going to be live later on today from when you're seeing this video, I think. So yeah, I'll see you then.